Hello once again and welcome to Willow Talk for the first time or the 100th time, whatever it is. It's great to have your company. Adam Peacock with Brad Haddin. You've found you in Hobart. I thought you got lost there the other day.
Well, you could have very easily got lost. The crowd for that final was amazing. And when Mitch Owen started to, well, he actually didn't use the stadium that much. He used the wicket, but the balls were flying out of the whole ground. It was one of the most extraordinary, life-changing innings you'll ever witness on a cricket field. His power hitting was so unique. It was unbelievable life.
It was a bit like Zach Haddin the other day, the local park. We'll get to that in a minute, Hads. Happy for you. Happy for the Haddin family. We're going to preview the Women's Ashes Test at the MCG. That's what's on the rundown here for this episode of Willow Talk. We're going to chat to former England spinner Graeme Swann about his time as an assistant coach with the England Lions out here this summer and sprinkle a little bit of Ashes chat there as well, Hads.
Just go back. Can you read that again?
Yeah.
Graeme Swann, assistant coach.
Yeah.
It didn't say social manager.
No. Yeah.
That is you know what? That is going to be a fun England tour.
I wonder if he's wonder if he's put his hand up to organise the extracurricular activities.
Well, tactically, he's a great thinker of the game.
Yeah.
But he's good fun. Graeme Swann. He was a lead singer of a band.
Yeah.
Also, so it won't be a boring tour.
He's an impressionist as well. Rocky Flintoff, the 16-year-old, he's going to learn a bit, even though that the old man's on the tour as well. I think Graeme Swann might take him under his wing and push him in a certain direction.
Oh, I think with his dad, yes, Freddie's the coach, but if he starts to take his 16-year-old boy under his wing, I would grab him by the left ear and get him closer to you.
We've got Sundries later on as well. So plenty coming up on this episode of Willow Talk. We are recording just before the first test starts between Australia and Sri Lanka. So we'll park that chat. A preview we did earlier in the week. Had a good chat to Tom Decent. Also Chris Lynn as well, summing up the Big Bash too. So have a listen to that one if you want your full preview for the Sri Lanka test. We've got a full review of that particular first test coming your way early next week, so we don't miss out here on Willow Talk. We're loving the messages and reviews coming in for Willow Talk. Keep them coming. We've saved a couple for you, Hads, since you've got out of Tasmania alive. On Apple, Ocean's Blue 8 says, love it. I'm an Aussie cricket tragic catching up from overseas, and this podcast rocks. Feels like I'm at home. So much in-depth info and plenty of laughs along the way. Hopefully this episode provides a bit more of that, Ocean's Blue 8. Chilo 101 says, keeping it real. Love the pod and the stories from Had's Heels and the guests. The previews of matches and series are very good, if not a little one-eyed. Hads, I'm looking at you.
Go the Blues.
Shield starting again soon, so we can get back on that train very, very quickly. On Instagram, Dan says, I think Hads should be the next Aussie coach. Has Hads got any ambition on being a coach? Would be a great leader. Well then.
I do assistant coach in the IPL. I enjoy. It's something you always think about. And you think about it when you're going into an environment, can I make a difference? At the moment, I'm content where I'm at. I'd never say never, but at the moment, I'm content where everything's at.
What a ridiculous fence sit.
Well, what do you want me to say?
I've got offers. I'm mulling them over. But will it intrude on my Willow Talk commitments?
And Tim asks.
Yeah. If it's not a fence sit, it's a move along order. Here we go. And Tim asks, I'm a proud Gold Coaster. Got the lucky experience of COVID Big Bash on the coast. Why isn't there a Gold Coast Big Bash team? Is it a coast thing or a franchise thing? It's probably too close to Brisbane Heat.
Yeah, I think one team works in Brisbane. I think that's a pretty good model that's worked. I know the Brisbane Heat take a few games up to the Gold Coast. It's a tricky one up there. Do you get the supporter base? I know the Big Bash is on during holiday season and a lot of people go up there, but it's the locals who put bums on seats. So, yeah.
Well, let me check this. Gold Coast population. I mean, I will say it's a pretty big city. There's a lot of people live on the Gold Coast, but I mean, if Sydney can have two teams, Melbourne can have two teams.
Not a lot of teams have worked up there. A lot of teams have folded up on the Gold Coast. So I would think more, if I was thinking, Canberra.
Oh, of course you are. Another biased comment from one Bradley Haddin. But, I mean, if you were going to go to 10, if you wanted to keep the even number, Gold Coast could be the option. They've got a population over 600,000. It's not a small town. What's Canberra's
Yeah,
population?
but 500,000 of those people surf.
Yeah. Well, it's pretty hard to surf at night, Bradley, last time I checked.
Oh, not that hard.
Yeah. You do it. It's a bigger population than Canberra. So why should Canberra have one? Like Gold Coast, I think Tim has a point here.
Oh, well, Tim, not a lot's worked up at the Gold Coast.
Now, Bradley, to Big Bash.
Yep.
So Mitch Owen, we've reviewed the innings. Chris Lynn
Yep.
talked about the like rhythm he got in, the groove he got in. What does it mean for him now? So in a realistic sense, do IPL franchises look at that and go, oh, okay, if we need to make some manoeuvring here and bring him in, was it that good a knock, or is it other steps that he can take around the franchise world and then IPL if he keeps doing that?
I think the knock was just icing on the cake. If you look at the way Mitch Owen has played through the series, that's his second 100.
Yep.
And a lot of the way he played, it was brutal hitting. But he played both sides of the wicket. He's got a technique. And it's one of those innings, you talk about life-changing moments, and I think this will be one for Mitch Owen. He'll come on the radar now for IPL teams, yes, but there's other ways as well. You got the England, you got the 100, you got 2020 there, you got Pakistan League, you got the Caribbean. So expect now Mitch Owen to have a lot of offers around the world to play franchise cricket, and then he'll take a similar track, I think, to Tim David. We'll see him eventually in the IPL because it wasn't just brutal hitting. It was a bit of gamesmanship behind it, the way he played. He had a great base, hit both sides of the wickets, and I've seen him twice score 100. Mate, his power he gets is phenomenal. These sixes are hitting the top of the Ricky Ponting stand. Some of them went out of the ground, and to do it from ball one in a final under pressure, that shows also his good character. He doesn't get caught up in the moment. So, yeah, it's definitely a life-changing innings. I'll tell you what, down there, mate, the crowd, everyone in Tasmania wanted to be Mitch Owen. And you could see the way he got interviewed after the game. He was actually in a bit of shock, I think, about like, whoa, like everyone here at this moment wants to be me. So he's a Tasmanian, born and bred, first title, have a local do it in that style. It's life-changing.
What's the reports coming out of Hobart about how they're celebrating that, the Hurricanes?
Well, I've seen a picture of Matthew Wade's 24 hours after the game. He was still in his playing clothes. He had a fire on the beach with the Big Bash trophy. So
didn't he ride into the ground on a scooter?
Yeah, he did. He
or
did.
Something, or one of those e-bikes?
On an e-bike into the ground. He got a big cheer too, Matty Wade.
Yeah,
a big cheer when he went up and got his medal. He's homegrown. He's come back. He's done a lot in the game, so it means a lot. And the way Nathan Ellis spoke, he said after the game, Tasmanian cricket has changed my life.
Nathan Ellis.
Yep.
Yeah, because he was working up here as playing grade cricket
Yep.
in Sydney and then went hunting an opportunity down there.
Yeah, and now he's sought after in all white ball forms of the game and franchise cricket around the world. I know Mitch Owen got spoken about a lot because how brutal his innings was. But Thunder were, I think, 97 after 10 overs, none down. Then straight after the break, he's come on. He's got 3 wickets for 20-something runs, and that wasn't the norm, the way the game was going. He was absolutely outstanding. He's got a great bowling attack there, but the way Nathan Ellis led the team was world-class, and he deserves everything he gets. Everything he gets, Nathan Ellis, that comes his way, he deserves because he works so hard.
But the celebrations, back to that, like you've been involved in great moments, like World Cup winning moments, the white ball, big Test series wins. What's the differences between that and winning a Big Bash title, which you did with the Sixers?
Well, I think the one
how you celebrate.
Yeah, I think the one thing for Hobart is that they've been building for this for quite some time. You could just see by the crowd how much it meant. Not only Hobart, but Tasmania. They're very passionate about their team, and the big thing after the game was Tasmania, how passionate everyone was about what they're trying to do. And coach, we haven't heard Jeff Vaughan's name mentioned a lot, but he needs a lot of credit. He's taken over a couple of years ago. He's turned Tasmanian cricket around, and
should have hosted a final last year in Shield. if not for a big slip up in the last regular game, and then they had to go to Perth where they got walloped.
And he deserves a lot of credit as well. They played a really attacking style, and the story's Mitch Owen. But what about the story before the season starts to recognise Mitch Owen as their opening batter? And that came from their staff. So everything around their win, it's their first title. But Jeff Vaughan deserves to get a lot of credit, and he'd love it. He'd love that he's not getting spoken about. He's that sort of coach. You could see the way the players embraced him at the end, how much he means, how hard he works. So I'd like to shout out congratulations to Jeff Vaughan on what he's done over the last couple of years.
It's lovely what you said there, but you totally ignored the question about celebrating. Did you have any good ones with the Sixers?
Can't remember them.
So
we had a good one after the Champions League.
Yeah.
We had. We went for quite some time.
Bring that back.
The Champions League.
Bring it back.
Yeah, I thought that was a great competition as well. And then it's also a good tool for franchises around the world to have a look at the talent. So, yeah, I think you're right. We bring it back. It was a great tournament. Great fun in South Africa. Mate, Cape Town. I remember...
Perth Scorchers might disagree, given what happened to them over there getting in trouble, but you guys didn't for doing the same thing.
Well, I gave our players 2 days off. I said, we're the first part of the tournament's in Joburg, and we travelled a little bit. I said, then we got to Cape Town. And I knew what they were about to do, and the management was saying, we can't do this. I said, do you want to do it behind your back, or do you want to say, work hard till we get there? And then we just gave them 2 days off.
Well spent. Later on, we'll discuss a few player movements on Willow Talk. We'll get to that in Sundries. But just before we move on from the Big Bash, so your beloved Sydney Sixers, you look at that lineup, and no discredit to any of the players that have been able to get themselves in their career to represent the Sixers in a final. But it was pretty different to what their desired lineup looked like early in the competition. Obviously, outside factors are at play here with, in particular, the Middle East T20 competition. Yeah. Is there anything that they can do to ensure that the teams that start the competition are stacked for the finals? Or do you look at it and go, you know what, if they get to the finals and they have to choose a different line, it doesn't matter because it's such a great event anyway. Crowds are full.
Yeah, it is a great event. But I'll take you back to a week before the finals when all the international players came back. Steve Smith, I know Travis Head had a break. Alex Carey came back into the team. But what about the energy in the comp then? At the cricket ground, it was packed out to see Steve Smith's 100. We just need to find a way so our best players are playing in the marquee event at the end. And if you look at the Hurricanes, they had Chris Jordan. He was there the whole time.
Yep.
And he was so important in that team, not just with his bowling, but off the field. Sam Billings was exactly the same. He was there the whole time. So when you're talking about recruitment for these competitions, the best teams, Sixers have had it with James Vince.
Yeah.
When they've gone deep into the finals, James Vince has been there the whole time. So
he's off playing in
UAE,
one of the franchises over there.
You've got to find a way to have as little as change in your team as you can. And the two teams that made the final proved that.
It's hard because money in this realm, especially, like everyone says, money shouldn't talk, a bit of loyalty and everything like that. But that's the circuit. That's the life of a T20 franchise player. They just dive around, as Chris Lynn explained the other day.
Well, that's reality of where we're at. But as I said, we just got to have a look at the energy all our test players gave the tournament. And if we can find a way to have that energy into the finals with those guys playing, in my opinion, it'll be the best franchise competition in the world.
Yeah, I'm just having a look at so in end of January next year, there's Pakistan away for the Australian setup. That's early February actually, so it might not cross over. So hopefully we're seeing those test stars, whoever can back up after what will be a sapping Ashes series. So you've got those players there. Wait and see. Women's Ashes HADS. So it starts today, 2:30 Eastern, day-night test match, MCG. As soon as it was locked in on the schedule, it was like, wow, how good will this be? So especially considering Australia go in 12-0 up, and you've called a couple of the games for Triple M. Say it now.
I don't need to.
No, you do.
I don't.
You do. What did you say?
Well, I thought...
Yes.
It was laid down as there that England wouldn't get any points in the white ball series.
Okay.
Well, you just had to have a look at the way Australia bowed out of the World Cup. It's a very talented team, this Australian women's team. The younger players are starting to grow. Sutherland, Gardner, Phoebe. You just have to look at how they're starting to grow. And I thought after the back of that World Cup defeat, they were going to be really hungry. And England, after that first game, the way they fielded, there's been some strange comments come out from the England staff as well. But I just didn't think they were ever going to be in the contest.
See, I thought after that first game, that was the contest they needed, that they didn't get against the Governor-General's 11 because the game got binned halfway through. And I thought, okay, they might need a game to get going. You saw it from the Australian men at the start of this summer. It felt like Perth was, get the wheels turning, and once you get them turning. But hell,
it's a lesson learned because you can't rely on tour games when you get to the country to get you ready for the match. You've got to make sure all your work's done, and they're a bonus. They're just to get a little bit of fine-tuning into what you need to do and then get in the series. But they're totally dominated. Tactically, their presence in the field, Australia are outstanding. Their hunger. Beth Mooney at the top was absolutely outstanding, but they also played a different style. The Australian women, they took after they went after the game. They used their athleticism to their favour, and they put pressure back on England, and they didn't respond. They didn't respond at all, and it's just got worse and worse.
Yep, it has. It's like the 2013 Ashes all over again in the men's side.
How good.
But is the series, though, now that we've gone to the MCG 12-0 up, series is gone. So it becomes just about a test match. Is it us about, should the test match be first and then play the one days?
I actually think they should play more test matches. I like the way the series is done with the white ball. I would like this to have a couple of tests, maybe 3, because the standard of cricket that they're playing. But this is no way on earth they're just going to roll through the motions. The women's cricket team love playing test cricket and expect them to come out. And I think they're going to play their best cricket of the summer. England are going to be in for an almighty shock the way this team plays, because this is the game they want to play.
Elisa Healy, friend of the show, big friend of the show, obviously. As we sit here and record, she's just had a press conference in Melbourne. She says she's ready to go, but not 100% locked in. There's obviously some deliberations got to take place about recovery from a fitness session that she might have had or whatever. They just want to make sure that she's 100% fit. That must be, I don't know if you've ever been involved in selection issues around an injury that you as a player think you're fine, but someone else doesn't, or vice versa. The medical staff saying, no, you're good, but you're in the back of your mind thinking, I don't know.
Well, first and foremost with Heels is knowing how much of a team person she is. She would be thinking, am I going to let someone down? Can I get through the game? And all those emotions are going through your head. Yes, I've got through the fitness test. Am I going to be okay tomorrow? Can I do 2 or 3 days? I know she's in the team in this squad not to keep, so that's already been ruled out. I hope she comes up. She's the centerpiece of this team. She's the leader. I would love to see her play, because they don't get to play enough Test cricket. And you see the passion that she speaks about with this form of the game. So I hope she gets through everything. And I know it's not keeping. She'd love to be keeping, but I hope she can get the armband on and captain Australia in the Test match.
Absolutely. Wholeheartedly agree with that, Hads.
And open.
Yeah, you love her up the top of the order. Have you ever seen a dramatic fitness test before a Test match? Something that jumps into your mind?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of interesting Test match fitness tests. I remember a couple of times they've had fitness test guys say, I can't run, my knee. And Stuart Carpenter said, you know what? I'll get a fitness test. He throws a football out.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. He said, go kick the ball around, boys.
Yeah.
He goes, he's right to go. And they go, I've got to do a fitness test. And they go, you've already done it, actually. And they go, what do you mean? You're just kicking the football around. You played touch football. Mate, I've had a couple of them, actually.
Yeah.
Interesting ones with broken fingers where they're hitting balls, and you got to get through. But the hard thing with the fitness test is, okay, you've got through, and you're trying to get through for a personal gain to play. But once you get through, then you got to take a step back and say, hang on, can I do it for 5 days? And the big question in your mind all the time, and it's the one that plays with your head, am I going to let everyone down? And that's the thing you battle most with. Like you can deal with the pain and yes, I can get through, but you don't want to get halfway through the game and say, you know what, I couldn't get through with that finger. I'm out. Then all of a sudden you let your teammates down. That's what you battle with. You battle with going into the game. You're not worried about the pain. You're not worried about the injury getting worse. You're worried about getting halfway through and having to walk off. That's what you can't handle. And that's what plays on your mind.
Do you ever play with painkillers?
Yep.
In your fingers?
Yeah. In the 2009 Ashes, I blocked a ring finger for training in the last 2 tests. I couldn't feel it.
Because you missed the third test.
I missed the third test. I broke it in warm-up. I eventually had to get surgery.
What day of the game?
After the toss went up. After the toss went up, I broke it. I was catching the Peter Siddle just in warm-up. Caught one on the end.
Whose fault was that?
No one's fault. I was actually... I remember that Troy Cooley, the bowling coach, he said, can you just catch a couple to Sids? Because he was running on the wicket. And I was just catching a couple. I wasn't really concentrating, sort of trying to watch where Sid's run, and the ball just got me on the end.
Oh.
So I missed that test match. They had to go and get permission off Strauss whether I could be pulled out of the team.
Did you have to go and show him the finger?
No, he said, no, you're right. It's lucky they said that, actually, because the same thing happened to Matt Pryor.
Yeah.
The next test, he did his back, and he had to come and said, we need to delay
the
this.
toss.
Yeah, or we need to delay the toss a bit. We just got to see if Pryor can get through.
Yeah.
And it did. But I played the last 2 test matches, but it didn't end that well because I had to go in for surgery afterwards. I got a hinge joint in that finger now and 10 screws.
Far out.
Yeah.
10 screws in a finger.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a mess. It was in about 8 pieces.
You're a man of little screws. There you go. Back to the Ashes test. I've got to bring up this comment from John Lewis. We brought up the other day.
Yeah.
So to repeat, it gets a second run on Willow Talk. It's worth getting a second run on Willow Talk. I walked from Bondi to Coogee the other Sunday morning, and pretty much the whole of the eastern suburbs of Sydney were out swimming in the sea and running and walking. There's a cultural difference there as well in terms of Australia versus England, as well as there is England versus India or India versus South Africa. So comparing the two nations is slightly different. So it's along the lines of, because you guys get to go outside and we're in freaking inside 10 months a year in England, you're more athletic than us. Naturally.
That's the worst excuse I've ever heard.
Ever?
Ever. Blaming where you live.
You've heard
Mate, I'd go move in the Maldives. They must have the best cricket team ever. Mate, beautiful sun. You can walk around everywhere. Oh, my gosh. Excuses because it's 12-0.
Yeah. Excuses or reasons? That's always the fine line, isn't it?
Mate, that'll be a good review. Imagine walking in to a review meeting with your head of performance. I'd just throw that at him. What's that? Come on.
They need a review, though. They need to recalibrate. They've got a competition like the 100.
Yeah.
And you'd think that England cricket is going in the right direction, men's and women's, but on evidence of this, they've got some issues.
Yeah, they have. They've been outplayed, first and foremost, but it's not about... You can be beaten by a better team. That happens in sport all the time, but it's sometimes the way you get beaten, and I think that's what the English fans will be most disappointed with.
And so Australia win this one?
Yep.
Okay. 16-0. Whew. That's paddling. There's another important women's cricket match in Melbourne on Thursday with the exiled Afghanistan cricket team playing for the first time since the Taliban takeover in 2021. The women's team is playing an exhibition T20 at Junction Oval against a team put together by Cricket Without Borders, an organisation working to create more opportunities for women and girls in and through the cricket world. So this is a wonderful initiative from Cricket Australia. I want to make a point on this. There's a petition and a bit of noise going around that Australia, the men's team, should pull out of the Champions Trophy game against Afghanistan. It's an ICC competition. To me, I get the sentiment because what's going on there in Afghanistan with women is absolutely horrific. Not allowed to go to university, not allowed to walk the street. All of this. It's like so foreign to what we view how the world is. But in my eyes, pulling out of a game like that achieves what?
Nothing.
Is it going to change anything in Afghanistan? So Australia, when they play in an ICC tournament, I'm thinking they get some kind of cut of the pie in terms of financial situation. So to take that cut and go, yeah, we'll take that money, and to help put on events like this, or help the exiled Afghanistan cricket team build up, I would have thought is a much better way of approaching things and publicising their plight through this rather than just going, nah, the blokes can't play. That to me makes no sense, and the effect is like less than zero.
Well, what you're looking for is we need change and the opportunities for the women and girls to get to play the game. And not only cricket, but all walks of, whether it's university, study, a better quality of life. So to get the opportunity to play this game, mate, well done. And everyone get out there, support it, because it's so foreign to us. We don't understand half of 3%, no percent on what's going on. So it's a great opportunity to get out and support.
Exactly. Well said, Hads. We're off to a quick break on Willow Talk. Drinks break. Back in a moment with Graeme Swann. Welcome back to Willow Talk. Behind the scenes this summer, the old enemy is out on these shores and something of a reconnaissance mission, I dare say. The England Lions, the English equivalent of Australia A, has been playing red ball matches against the Cricket Australia 11 in Brisbane this month, coached by England greats Andrew Flintoff and assistant Graeme Swann. What a coaching team that is, Hads.
Well, I'll tell you what that'll be. Take the cricket away. That will be a fun change room. We both Flintoff and Graeme Swann. Swann is one of the characters of world cricket. So,
as we're about to find now, the team is in Sydney for Thursday's match against Australia A, and this is all with an eye to next summer's Ashes series. So we've got Swanny in to chat about how it's all going. Here he is, Graeme Swann. Yeah, Swanny's here with us, and he was part... I don't know if you remember this, part of the OG Willow Talk back in 2015, and it was yourself, Matt Hayden, Mark Waugh, and I think Kevin Peterson dropped in as well for a bit.
Yeah, I'm sure Kev did drop in at some point. Yeah, I mean, I'm one of the founding fathers, you could call me, but I'm still waiting for the royalty check, to be honest, lads. That's why I'm here today.
But you're out here, obviously, with the England Lions.
Yes.
So this development squad, the team under the test team. How's the tour been so far? 2 matches down as we sit here, and you've got a tour match coming up at Cricket Central in Sydney this week.
Yeah, well, we've got Australia A this week. We've played a couple of development sides so far who basically, I don't know the difference. You know, when you're on tour and every team's got a different name, a Prime Minister's 11, a President of Development 11.
They'll all be the same players.
All the same players, yeah. But it's very, I mean, the opposition's strong. We've got a very young team. And we've had 2 or 3 weeks in Brisbane, so I'm about 3 stone lighter than I was, just down to the humidity of that place. How do you play cricket in Brisbane? I don't see how it's possible to do day in, day out, to get up and put your cricket stuff on without just wilting. It's like being in Colombo. The place is an absolute oven. Hello to everyone from Brisbane, obviously. I gave Haydos a shout for a barbecue, but he never got back to me. So
he's too busy fishing.
My first class captain, a fellow founder, father of Willow Talk, he's dropped me.
The other thing, I'm looking at this tour and I see your name come up. And you've been successful commentary. I know you got a good cricket brain. Why? Coaching.
You know what? Loads of people ask that, especially my wife when the bank balance comes through every month. But I just got sick and tired of commentary, to be honest. I still love it, don't get me wrong, but 12 months of a year in a commentary box, just talking cricket, I felt so out of it. I felt, I'd see my mates down on the side of the field. I'd forever be trying to itch and talk to them and get involved, and then realise that I want to try it out. I want to see whether I actually am any good at it, first and foremost, and whether I want to do it. So I badgered Andy Flower during COVID. I was stood at the DY Patil Stadium in Mumbai, which is a great stadium, but during COVID was pretty soulless.
Yeah, it was.
And I was on the edge of the outfield one day, and I found I was just staring at the floor, sort of waiting for my cue to come on air. And Andy Flower walked around and went, "Andy, please let me try out with the Trent Rockets in the 100 in England." And he said, "I didn't think you'd like to do that, ever." And I went, "No, I'm in. And so he let me do it. I say as a favour, I'm doing him a favour. I get paid less than the guy who works on the door at Nottingham, honestly. And I loved it. From day one, I came back in, and it was my wife, really. I walked in, she said, "Well, this is the bloke our marriage just come home, rather than that idiot for the last 10 years who's been miserable."
What's your style? What do you find the modern day player hard to talk to? Is it the same as when you had successful eras for England?
Yeah, there are elements that I'm still getting to grips with.
Yeah.
The modern day elements, we'll call them. But I'm very relaxed, and I always love cricket, and I love playing. I loved having a laugh when I played, and trying to see the sort of positive and fun side of cricket.
Yeah.
Because it's still the best game in the world.
100%.
It's why we started.
Yeah.
And so I try and get that over. There's a lot of serious players these days, I find, because they've been brought up. They have to be. They have to take it seriously. They have to think of money all the time.
Yeah.
And I try and take all that out. Just go, this is that game. You remember that first time you got 100 when you were 11 years old? First time you were picked for your grade side. The first time you went to sleep playing against men the next day rather than boys, and you were absolutely bogging yourself.
Yeah.
Those feelings, remember all that when you play.
Yeah. First time you got drunk as a 16-year-old in the change room with the old...
Apart from that one,
There's Rocky Flintoff. We can talk about that in a second. No, the initiation. But the tour, as it's set up, so you've got players in this squad that have already played Test cricket. You've got guys who have just started in first-class cricket. So what are yourself and Andrew Flintoff trying to get across to the squad about what this tour is about?
Yeah, I mean, this tour is basically getting people ready for next year's Ashes. Those guys, there'll be a couple of fast bowlers I think will probably be involved, maybe not in the first team, but at least in the squad in the Ashes. Shoaib Bashir, I'm here to work with, who's our best spinner at the minute. He's 6'7", with fingers longer than Monty Panesar that I thought was impossible. Looks, the Emperor out of Star Wars when he fires and stuff at Luke Skywalker. Yeah. It's a bit like that. The fingers just go on and on forever. But he's tall, he gets bounce. And, spinners over here, you don't roll through teams, but you provide a supporting act. So we're just getting Bash ready for, what's going to be a big tour for him. And if he can back up a decent set of fast bowlers, we've got a shout in the Ashes. That's the hope.
How's he going? Because he obviously played in that India series, which was a fascinating watch. But how's he going here with the different conditions? I've noticed the figures don't exactly jump off the page at you. Yeah. But is there something about what you've seen that tells you that he's going to succeed here? Yeah,
I mean, he's a very young bloke, really. I think he played 4 first-class games before he was picked for England in the first place. Such was sort of the dearth of talent spin-wise. Yeah. It's actually not a dearth of talent, but English spinners just don't get anything like the backup they should from captains, from the system, from the fact it's always raining and you've got a wet ball, stuff like that. So he's very sort of wet behind the ears, but he's a quick learner, and he was brilliant in India. And this is all about just getting him used to bowling on pitches that bounce first and foremost, and playing a different role. Because if you look at spinners since Warney, I mean, I think it's fair to say no spinner has come and just won test after test after test in Australia. You get the odd game where the pitch will break up, and then that's your turn, your chance to shine. But other than that, you play a supporting role, and he'll do that really well. He's come on leaps and bounds since day one when we got here, to the point now he bowled yesterday in training, and looked amazing. So it's a long process, but in 9 months' time, when we're 2-0 up, and he's got 15 wickets already, that's all down to me.
It'll be actually interesting to see if you look through the 8 games. Yes, you're here to get ready for the Ashes, but on the flip side, if Australia are noticing what this squad is, the off spinner is going to play in the Ashes. So if I'm in the Australian A team, I'm actually targeting. I'm going that hard at him. See how he reacts to the field. Because one of and Swanee was the same. We had plans to try to do it to Swanee, but they're going to have 4 good fast bowlers or an all-rounder. But the most important bowler is going to be the spinner. Yeah. Because he can hold one end in Australia. But if you get hold of him, all of a sudden the quicks have to come back early. It'd be interesting to see how the Australian A players take after him. Have they got word from McDonald? I'd imagine you guys would have had word from Baz the way and the style you want to play this tour.
Yeah, well, I don't think there's been direct contact with Baz, but I think it's just a sort of an open secret, isn't it? That if you're going to play in the England team, you have to be prepared to be very positive at all times. And so, yeah, I'd actually quite like that this week as well. I'd like to see them come to see how Bash reacts. He's such he gets such bounce that I think he'll react quite well. Yeah, I knew you were doing that all the time, especially you. You'd lap slog your first ball anytime. You know what? It's one of the things I always talk about, though. Yeah. That as a bowler, as a spinner especially, you should always be prepared to block off someone's get-out-of-jail-free shot. Yeah. So the second you'd walk out to bat, and I didn't care that all our commentators would go, "Oh, he's been bloody negative, Swan here." I would put a deep mid-wicket out immediately, because if I didn't, you would lap slog a good ball that I want you to try and defend. And get in the mindset of, if you just put fielders where the batsmen don't want them, you have to hit it somewhere else, and you have to play a different game.
Yeah.
So yeah, when you used to walk into bat, I used to love it on one hand, but on the other hand, oh, God's sake.
Well, it was interesting because in the last series you played, I know I was skipping forward a bit. We thought the most important bowler was Swanny. They had all the quicks, Anderson. And Buff said to me, "You've got to go from ball one." And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "We've got to get the quicks coming back. They're getting older.
Get them tired, yeah.
And it nearly worked against me. I remember the first ball I went after, just went short of mid-wicket. I sort of looked at Buff, and he goes,
keep going. Yeah, it was when Nathan Lyon hit me for 6. I knew that was the end.
Later in the year, we're going to catch up with Graeme Swann and talk about all the great Ashes memories. But back to the present, and I'm fascinated about this kid. And in a way, you've got to feel sorry for him because by virtue of his last name, he's going to have unreasonable amounts of focus on him.
Yeah.
But when he rocks up against the CA11 at AB Field and cracks 108 batting at 9, it's hard not to pay attention to Rocky Flintoff. So what is he right now? And where can he go in the next 4 years? He's still such a young man, 16 years of age.
Well, you know what? There's no ceiling to how far Rocky can go, in my view. He's got all the talent his dad has. And he's got that youthful exuberance that only kids get, only 16-year-olds can have. But also everything that Fred went through and, all the off-field stuff and everything. He's got, a yardstick to not make some of the mistakes that Fred made. But, I mean, let's face it, Andrew Flintoff is an absolute superstar.
Yeah, he is.
And he's got an aura about him. And to have that as your dad when you're on tour, I mean, Rocky, I just say he's like a big Labrador puppy. He's always happy. His arms and legs everywhere. He's always got a big smile on his face.
Always eating
and boundless energy. And his talent is off the charts. Yeah. I've only seen him bowl properly in the last couple of days because he's been looked after. He's had a bad back, I think. So I've only seen him bowl flat out yesterday. Was the first time. And he is an absolute clone of Andrew Flintoff.
Oh, yeah.
God.
I know. That's what I thought.
We don't want to hear
pace
this.
and bounce and everything.
Yeah.
So... I love the kid to pieces. I reckon he could be a superstar. I don't think he'll be rushed. I don't think it'll be like he'll play next winter. I think that would be a bit quick.
Sorry, how does Dad coach him? Or do you get involved there to just take that heat off the father-son relationship?
Well, I think they've got a very good relationship. So Fred is, Fred's Fred, and he's brilliant with everyone he meets. So there's no... There's sometimes a friction, isn't there, between father and son? That the kid doesn't want to listen to his dad, and he knows best. But it doesn't seem to be like that with those two. So
good.
Fred is a little bit hands off. He lets him sort of crack on with it. But he's a young kid. He's still finding his way. He's played 2 or 3 first-class games. But his 100 in Brisbane a couple of weeks ago was bonkers. He got 50, and we were 9 down. And then he just blitzed it everywhere in a way that a 16-year-old shouldn't be allowed to do. It was great to watch.
Can there also be a train of thought that it's too early to bring someone like young Flintoff? He's 16 years of age. He's got obviously his father's a superstar, stand in the game. Can you find that fine line, pushing him too early and breaking him because of the name?
Yeah, I think that is a fine line, isn't it?
Yeah.
But there's that one school of thought. Like the Indian school of thought would be get him in the test team immediately, like Sachin Tendulkar.
Yeah.
And then they have to just deal with the incredible pressure that brings. But they get very, very protected over there. They don't have a press that's going to rip them to pieces and try and trawl through their personal life. In Australia and England, we have a tabloid press who would do that.
Yeah, we would.
For no other reason than he's in the team. Yeah. So you have to tread carefully. I don't think he'll be pushed too quickly.
Yeah.
But I said this. Someone asked me this the other day. If he wasn't called Flintoff, if he was Rocky Wilson or whatever. Yeah. Hello to Mr. and Mrs. Wilson if you're out there. Whoever you are.
Kid's a lovely player. He's no good.
Yeah, he'd still be on this trip because he's that good.
That's good.
And when there was talk of he should be with the under-19s, I mean, I love the under-19s, but he's too good for that, I think.
Skip that.
What about when stories at the end of play, you're in the change room, you had a great era, and you start to talk about stories of the past, and you go, oh, Shit, Fred's kids there.
Yeah.
Anyway, jump in the ice bath.
I tell you what, that is one area where the game has changed beyond recognition. Like that storytelling, meeting the opposition, having a drink, and just laughing and talking about these. It doesn't happen anymore.
Have you tried to bring that back with the Australians?
I do a little bit, yeah. I mean, not with the Australian team. I might try it this week, but it tends to be the coaches will meet up, and because we're from that era, aren't we? But the modern day player, they all know each other first and foremost through franchise cricket and school cricket, and there don't seem to be that. The great storytelling and the drinking culture anymore, which in a way is great. The drinking culture wasn't ideal, but
was fun.
In a way,
was fun.
Massive shame as well. I still remember Ricky Ponting dumping Andrew Strauss's brand new Grey Nichols bat in a vat full of ice and water at the end of the Ashes in 2009. That day, Straussy got this cricket bat. He used to get the worst bats you've ever seen from Grey Nichols. They were horrific, and we used to call them spirit levels. They were dreadful. And then Grey Nichols brought out the Australian-shaped bat, or the Indian-shaped bat that the Aussies use, and he got, look at these bats, boys. I can't bloody wait. Strauss is back. And the Aussies walked in, and the big dustbin full of ice that had melted into like a slush. Punter picked up this bag and goes, what's this piece of shit? And dumped it straight in this bat. And Straussy couldn't say anything. He went, and the rest of us were crying with laughter. It's still one of my favourite things I've ever seen in my life.
Oh, how good. How good. Before we wrap up the chat about the England Lions, so you're saying there's not a direct contact with Brendan McCullum and Stokes and those at the helm of the test team, but there's an expectation that, it's pretty obvious how you've got to play. How's it filtered through the England cricketing system with all the counties and everything? Has it changed everything about how cricket is played in England?
Well, it hasn't. There's some counties embrace it and they play a much more proactive form of cricket, and some are stuck in the mud and refuse to do it, sort of completely against it. And you can virtually tell that when you turn up to watch them. If there's still not the declaration and think we've got to give ourselves a chance to lose to win this game, that doesn't happen in English cricket. But having said that, it really doesn't need to, because everyone gets bowled out for 200 these days anyway, because they're all cowboys. It does filter through. I think, if you're a young player coming up at the moment in England, as a batsman especially, you know what's expected. If you're going to get picked for the England team, you have to be aggressive. You have to be willing to, if your back's against the wall, to go out absolutely fighting. So if you're not going to do that, you're not going to play for England. So the onus is on the players, really. And the coaches at the counties have to sort of deal with it, suck it up and deal with it. I think it will evolve a bit, Bazball, because it is a bit gung-ho sometimes, but that's not from what Baz wants. That's just from how different players interpret.
You don't want to change it.
No.
The one thing I thought the most important player in Bazball was Joe Root. You have everyone playing this style around him. When Joe Root just batted the way he batted, then you're in trouble. When he tries to overplay his hand, you think, we're in the game here. But when he just bats, all of a sudden Bazball takes a new level, because everyone can bat around him.
Yeah. Oh, I agree with that.
Yeah.
And he got out in India, he got 100, then got out in the next ball trying to ramp someone. And it caused absolute mayhem in the press box.
Yeah.
But you can understand why. I'm with you. Root is such a good player. He doesn't need to do it.
Oh,
but some of the other lads, if they try and bat normally, they're walking wickets.
Yep.
But when they're being aggressive, they're very hard to bowl.
Well, Duckett's a perfect example. The cricket he's played since Baz has come in, he's up there. Like, franchises are all after him all around the world. Before, he was unknown. Yeah. Yes, he played well in county cricket, but he had a stigma about him. You're not playing the right way to play Test cricket. Now he's a match winner.
Yeah. Oh, Bazball's fantastic. Even when you don't win, you have moral victory. So that's a beautiful thing about English cricket right now. Quick one in closing.
Ouch. That was a bit of a jab, wasn't it? You didn't even look at me when you said that.
No,
you've been saving that, haven't you?
You know what? Someone asked me about this. What's this moral victory thing? I've not heard it before until I've come to Australia. It's really bugging you lads, isn't it?
You'll hear it next summer.
Didn't you hear players talk after last Ashes?
What was it about? The sandpaper thing?
No.
The underarm thing?
No, that
what was it about?
Your wicketkeeper went wandering.
There's so many.
We've forgotten that then.
When your wicketkeeper forgot where he was.
Oh, stop it. Oh,
the
that
little thing, I can't remember. Was that Atherton in his pocket?
Yeah, Atherton's with mud, yeah. But he's not English. He's from Cambridge.
Doesn't count.
It doesn't count, yeah.
Briefly, last one. As it stands right now, Who's favourite for the Ashes next?
Australia would be favourites because it's in Australia, but if it was in England, England would be favourites. It's as simple as that. Coming here is the hardest place outside of India, probably, for an English team. This is the hardest place to come and win. If England come over here with a decent battery of fast bowlers who don't break down, that's it. And like you said earlier, if you can go through an innings without having to bowl 30 overs, if you're just bowling short bursts, and then the most important thing over here is getting 400 when you bat.
Yep.
If you get big runs once in the game, you've got a chance of winning. And the last 2 Ashes, we've not got anywhere near doing that. So whoever gets the big runs, who's got the better batting lineup, us or you?
Thank you for dropping in, mate, and telling us about the England Lions. We look forward to next summer.
Can't wait.
He didn't let us down.
Oh,
that was only a little bit of it as well, because we've got good news. We've had a chat with Swanee about all-time Ashes memories, and that's coming later in the year on Willow Talk. But what a character.
He's a loose human. Mate, as I said, imagine that change room now, the education those kids are getting. Not about get over your front leg, get under it in Australia, go over the top of the ball. The stories Graeme Swann has for those kids, that I'm sorry, parents, they will not be the same when they come home.
But in saying all that, he's not just there as a social coordinator. The guy knows his cricket.
Oh, he does. He was a great tactician of the game. You only had to look at the way he bowled. He wasn't like Murali, guys like that had Doojas, Ashwin. He was an out-and-out off-spinner like Nathan Lyon. He had to rely on his technical nous, the way he flights the ball. But the one thing Swanee has is a really good way to look at the game. So he's there for that. He'll add a lot to this touring England Lions team about how to play in different conditions. And he had great success out here in Australia.
What was he like to face?
It was hard work. He was in the contest. He knew what you were trying to do. Like for me, if I was facing him, he'd want to cover deep mid-wicket straight away. I think it's defensive, but he'd know what you were trying to do to him. So we had some good battles, had some success against him. We hit him out of a series here in 2014, but he had a great series and a great record against Australia.
Yeah, the good news is that he did stick around for a greater chat about his life as an Ashes cricketer, 18 test matches. In that period, Hads, when we seemed to play each other every 6 months, it was 2009 to 2013. There were 4 series jammed in there. So it's a bloody good chat, and that's coming later for, I think we'll call it English Willow Talk or something along those lines during the middle part of the year when things get a little quieter on the domestic front, especially here in Australia with cricket, because this match, England Lions up against Australia A at Cricket Central in Sydney. So Jack Edwards, Sydney boy, is captain, and you've got some recognisable names here are on the cusp of, and that's essentially mirroring what England Lions are trying to do, like develop players and see how they go with a little bit of a step up in class from Sheffield Shield. What jumps out at you about the Australia squad there?
I like the squad. A first name on the list is Jack Edwards. I like in these situations where you give a guy like Jack Edwards a bit of responsibility, see how he reacts with the captaincy into his name. We're trying to develop leaders. He's got a little bit of a taste of that with New South Wales. So I like that he's been given the opportunity here. Xavier Bartlett is an interesting one. Don't be surprised if in the next couple of years he features in red ball cricket for Australia. He's outstanding with the new ball. He gets the ball to move off the seam, and he's won Corey, what is it, Rockacholi? He's a realistic chance of playing an Ashes test.
So he's a more over-the-top spinner as opposed to, is that why he's not gone to Sri Lanka, because he's not a...
Well, he's more of a bowler like Nathan Lyon. He comes up and over. He's tall. He gets a lot of bounce. He uses the breeze to his advantage. Where Murphy, he's had success in the subcontinent. He can go under the ball. He attacks the stumps a lot more. So I'm interested to see how Corey goes against some high quality opposition, because he's not out of. If something happens to Nathan Lyon during a home summer, he's a realistic chance of getting the opportunity to put the baggy green on.
The one that jumps out at me is Aaron Hardy. So he's obviously, you would have almost said before the summer that he's ahead of Bo Webster in terms of that role. Yeah. If something happened to Mitch Marsh, or, they're not using Cameron Green in that role anymore at 6. But, yeah, wonder what he can come up with in the next 12 months to possibly put put a bit of pressure on the selectors if, Bo Webster isn't quite finding what he found this summer.
Yeah, I think the thing with Aaron Hardy, we're just trying to work out where his best position is. And the more and more he plays in fixtures like this, the more we'll start to understand that. He bats, I reckon, up in the top 4.
So he's not a 6.
Well, that's what we're trying to work out. He will be eventually in Test cricket, I think. But we've seen him bat it with great success in Big Bash at number 3. He's got hundreds in Shield Final. So I think we're just trying to work out what his best role is. He's had a disrupted season with injury, which is disappointing for him. So we're just trying to work out where his best spot is. So these games are perfect for someone like Aaron Hardy.
So we'll keep an eye on that, as there's enough to keep an eye on over the next 4 days with the Australia A game. We've got the Sri Lanka first test and, of course, the big women's Ashes, which we've already talked about. Any other names there, Hads, on that Australia A squad?
Well, there's a couple of New South Welshmen. Josh Philippi. He's probably didn't have the big bash he was after, but he's had a great start to his campaign with New South Wales.
Yeah.
He's been really good, actually, in 4-day cricket. Curtis Patterson, that's a name we haven't seen in Australian colours for some time. He was out of New South Wales for 18 months. He's come back this year and he's scoring runs. He's got his way back in to this squad with performance. What I'd like to see for someone like Curtis, he's 31 years of age. He's played Test cricket and he's got back in from performances. But I was watching him during the Big Bash. I think you need to see a bit more from him in his body language and the way he presents in the field. His fielding was below par in Big Bash. And I think one of the things with him, it's not just about scoring runs, it's about what you contribute to the team with all those little things. So I hope he's gone away, learnt about his game. We know his batting's of high class, but it's just those other parts of the game. I want to see if he's learnt from his time out how much it means to get this opportunity back. And you'll see that by the way he presents himself in the field, where he put himself into situations to contribute to the game other than the bat.
Yeah, so also in this team, Jordan Buckingham, and he was a guest on Willow Talk last week, so
He's
go
mad.
back in the feed and have a look. Yeah, well, he's Paceman, isn't he? He's not all together. You'd hate to face him. You'd hate to face him. Anyway, that's the task of the England Lions, and we appreciate the time, again, of Graeme Swann. Into Sundries. So we talked about the BBL Final earlier in the show, Hads, but just a few things happening in the player movement regard. Jason Behrendorff was a free agent for about 3.2 seconds. Melbourne Renegades has signed him up on a 3-year deal. Good get for the Gades, especially if Marvel Stadium keeps playing tricks. That little wicket that they've got, and they take the odd game down to Geelong, which doesn't look like an easy place to bat either.
Oh, well, he's a experienced campaigner and he's a winner. He's come from successful franchises that have won their whole time. So he'll bring that experience. The big thing he'll bring is new ball bowling. He's high quality still with the new ball. He's added a few different tricks to his trade. They've got a young list, the Renegades, with a lot of young batsmen. So he'll offer more than just with the ball. So I think that's a really good signing. I know he turns 35 in April, but he's a sort of player that he doesn't need to play every game. You can pick and choose the times you use him, and he's a match winner. So I think it's a really, really smart move from the Renegades.
Do you reckon Marvel are going to invest in some different fertiliser ahead of next Big Bash campaign? It came good towards the end, or better towards the end.
Well, it came good when the roof opened.
Yeah, funny that.
Yeah,
Sun on grass.
they've got to get their surface down there right. They're building there. The Renegades are building. They'll be disappointed that they missed the final, but Jason Behrendorff will add a bit of experience up the top. Rogers had a great year with the new ball. He'll have a partner, left hand, and he, as I said before, he's come from a winning culture, which will help the Renegades in their rebuild.
What about rumours? Have you heard some rumours of Mitch Marsh, Tim David to the Stars, or maybe Bowie Webster back down to the Hurricanes?
Mate, there's always rumours at this time of the year. Tim David, he'll be hard to get hold of, I imagine, for the next week. I wouldn't take what comes out of their mouth. They're partying.
As you do.
Yeah, that was a great victory. So Mitch Marsh, we haven't seen him for a while. He played the one game when he came back. Mate, he's WA through and through. It'll be a big call if he goes anywhere, but It's a modern game.
Is his white ball status with the Australian setup in danger in the next 12 months? Because they love him.
Yeah, I think that's his best form in the game.
20s, T20s.
Yeah, well, T20s and one-day cricket. If I was Mitch, I'd be making sure I'm right physically and mentally for all those tours, because he's such a powerful player, and when he's at his best, and I think the white ball suits his body where it's at the moment. Test cricket, mate, he's had a great. He's the AB medalist. He's had a great 18 months, but I'd imagine would see a lot more of Mitch just in white ball over the next couple of years.
Jasprit Bumrah and Amelia Kerr have won the major gongs as far as the ICC go for 2024. Bumrah, Men's Cricketer of the Year for 2024. Kerr, Women's Cricketer of the Year for 2024, given her heroics with the New Zealand team that won that trophy a few months ago, the World Cup. Bumrah, can't argue with. Maybe if the Women's Ashes was in the catchment of 2024, it might have been a different story. I reckon Ash Gardner and Alana King for two out of this Australian team in this Women's Ashes have put themselves in the frame for 2025 gongs. But, hard to argue with those two.
I don't think you can argue with anyone. I think Bumrah, we've seen what he did through the summer in a losing team. Every time he got the ball in his hand, it was an event. And there wasn't much talk about really anyone else's performance in the Indian team. It's just how dominant he was. And Kerr, look what they did in the World Cup, New Zealand. They sort of came from nowhere. Their form leading in, no one's seen this coming. And you want your big players standing up in big moments, and that's exactly what Kerr did. So I think two really good choices. Paddy Cummins would have been close, I reckon.
Yep.
What he's done over the last 12 months, he's won everything. His leadership's been great with bat, ball. So, yeah, I'd imagine the conversation would have been close with Paddy.
And India, by the way, lead the 5-match T20 series against England 2-1. India won a thriller game too by 2 wickets, 4 balls to spare. Then England stayed alive with a 26-run win in Game 3. So this series goes on. It's the Indians have gone straight back there and played in that. They're playing a lot of white ball cricket at the same time, almost as their red ball cricket. Far out.
Well, it's a different team. Yes, on paper it looks like they've played a lot of cricket, but this 2020 teams are a lot different to what you've seen out here.
Because they had the tour in South Africa just before the Test series, and it was a completely different team. So they're using their depth.
Well, they are, and reading a lot of what's coming out of India, there's a lot happened since the Test series. There's a lot of rules been put in place by the BCCI. A lot of their players have had to come back and play Ranchi trophies. So this is a fresh Indian team. They're playing that way. But the other thing it shows is the depth, especially in this form in the game.
Any of your Punjab Kings 11 in this featuring in this series?
The 2020 Player of the Year.
Yeah.
Arshdeep Singh.
Mm-hmm.
He's been outstanding. Big left arm quick. He's had a phenomenal 12 months with the new ball. So I'm not going to give too much away, but he's going well.
You are impossible to get information out of ahead of this IPL. Like who you might be signing, what you might be doing, little tweaks to the squad, what style you want to play.
Well, you want to score one more run than the other team, so I'll clear that one up right now. But, it's a big business. We've got to get over there and make sure we get the team together and produce when it matters.
Are you speaking to Ricky Ponting more at the moment than you are your family?
No. Can't give too much away.
Okay. And lastly on Willow Talk today, for some unknown reason, and I don't know why, producer Sam has given us some fortune cookies. So I'm going to open up a fortune cookie. And Hads, apparently according to this fortune cookie, a fall into a ditch makes you wiser.
Well, it makes you wiser to watch where you're walking.
It's a very good point you make.
And with the amount of weather we've had in Sydney and trees falling over everywhere, the roads have got ditches in them everywhere. So I'll take that on board on my trip home.
Listeners, just take it on board. A fall into a ditch makes you wiser. And it also could possibly send you to hospital. Brad Haddin, thank you, mate.
Been a pleasure.
It has. That was Willow Talk. Back next week to fully review Australia's first test against Sri Lanka, the Women's Ashes test, and a little bit on that England Lions tour of Australia and the game against Australia A and whether or not they can survive the nightlife with Graeme Swann. Yeah, thanks for watching the Willow Talk podcast on YouTube. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you don't have to miss an episode wherever you are. And while you're at it, check out these videos up here. They're mostly good.